Mr. Grumpy by Roger Hargreaves. It was a lovely summer evening. Mr. Grumpy was at home, Crosspatch Cottage. He sat down in an armchair and picked up a book. And then, do you know what he did? He tore all the pages out of it, everyone. Mr. Grumpy can't stand books. He has a shocking bad temper. In fact, he's quite the most bad-tempered person you can imagine. Grumpy by name and even more grumpy by nature. The following morning, he was out in his garden pulling up flowers. He couldn't stop pretty flowers growing in his garden. Went out the corner, he saw a figure. It was Mr. Happy. Good morning, said Mr. Happy. Good, said Mr. Grumpy. What's good about it? But, said Mr. Happy. But nothing, went on Mr. Grumpy. Get out of my garden. I beg your pardon, said Mr. Happy. You heard me, said Mr. Grumpy. Go away. I say, laughed Mr. Happy. You are a bad-tempered fellow. Grunted Mr. Grumpy, and went on. Mr. Happy, bad-tempered fellows need to change their ways. Rubbish, retorted Mr. Grumpy, and went to his cottage, deliberately stepping on Mr. Happy's foot as he passed him. Ouch, said Mr. Happy. Bang, went the door across his coast, and Mr. Grumpy slammed it behind him. Mr. Happy just stood there, looking not quite so happy as he normally does. His foot hurt. He thought and thought and thought some more. Then he had the idea. He smiled and went to see Mr. Tickle. Mr. Happy told Mr. Tickle all about his idea how to get Mr. Grumpy to change his ways. And Mr. Tickle grinned the sort of grin that goes from ear to ear. That is, if you have ears, which he doesn't. Oh, he grinned, rubbing the heads together. Those extraordinary long ears together. That sounds fun. That afternoon, Mr. Grumpy went to town shopping. He walked into Mr. Meat's shop. Mr. Meat was a butcher. Give me some sausages, snapped Mr. Grumpy, and be quick about it. Poor Mr. Meat, who was talking to Mr. Grumpy, did it as he was told. But as he did it, he was told something appeared in his shop doorway. Do you know what it is? It was an extraordinary long arm belonging to, well, you can guess who it belonged to, can't you? That extraordinary long arm of Mr. Tickles came in through the door and across the shop into Mr. Grumpy and tickled him. Oh! Squeaked Mr. Grumpy in alarm, dropping his sausages and looking around to see what happened. But could not see anything. He could not. Grunted Mr. Grumpy and picked up his sausages and went next door to the cake shop. Crash! Went the door of the shop. Give me a cake, snapped Mr. Grumpy, and hurry up. Poor Mrs. Fairy, who sold cakes. His friend Mr. Grumpy, as it did as she was told. And as she was doing, guess what happened? Oh, squeaked Mr. Grumpy, dropping his cake and his sausages. He just could not understand what's happening. And the same thing happened at Mr. Daly's, the newspaper shop, and at Mrs. Humbug's, the sweet shop, and at Mr. Bottle's dairy, and at Mr. Packett's, the grocer's. It went on all afternoon. And after Mr. Grumpy kept being tickled and dropping shop and picking up and being tickled and dropping shop again, picking up and being tickled and dropping shop again. He just could not understand it. On his way back home to Crosspatch Cottage, he met Mr. Happy again. Hello, grinned Mr. Happy. Having a nice day? Get up to my way, snapped Mr. Happy, before I kick you. But almost before the Mr. Happy passed the sister and destroyed the log garment, Mr. Tickles had appeared from behind a tree and tickled him yet again. He jumped into the air, dropped all his shopping yet again, and fell over. Mr. Happy looked at it, Mr. Grumpy, lying amid a jumble of sausages and cakes and newspapers and sweets and milk and cornflakes. I think, he laughed, that you were to change your ways and be not quite so bad-tempered quite so often. It's sort of thing might happen to you quite so often. Grunted Mr. Grumpy. He picked up all his shopping yet again and went home to Crosspatch Cottage. But honestly, he did think about what Mr. Happy had said, because he definitely did not like what had happened to him in the afternoon. Mr. Happy, Mr. Tickle laughed and shook hands. And so after that, he did try to be not quite so bad-tempered quite so often. And the more he tried, the less he found it was tickled. And so he tried one for it. And these days, he's quite a changed person. Well, the other day, he picked up a book, and then do you know what he did? He only tore out one page. No boy, that's Marvel's cat. Why would you keep... How could he shout and scream and people freaking stink? Crooked cucumbers. One of these sleep pads. I like them. Couple sticky, don't be so. You